Okay. Okay, go ahead and out loud, and I'll be a witness, okay? Read out loud that prayer.
God, I offer myself to Thee, to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always.
Okay. We thought well before taking this step, making sure we were ready, that we could at last abandon ourselves utterly to Him. We found it very desirable to take this spiritual step with an understanding person. You can use whatever wording you want, and you just realize that this was, if you were honest and humble, you may feel a great effect. You might feel like a new beginning. Okay, so that was, I don't know if you've felt any of that stuff, but okay. All right. Okay. Now, we start on a step 4, and one object is to discover damaged or goods, damaged or useless goods, and to get rid of them in our lives promptly and without regret. Okay, part of the uncover, discover, and discard. Okay. We searched out the flaws that have led to some of our failures, okay? Now you don't realize it at this moment, okay? But being convinced that self manifested in various ways what had defeated us, we considered its common manifestations. Number 1 is resentments, which is an anger that lasts, and you replay it in your mind, and it's a resentment, okay? Redo, rethink it, re-experience the anger, re-experience a fear. From that, playing it over and over in your head stems all forms of spiritual disease. Okay, and it promises here, when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. So the way we do that is we set them on paper. We list people, institutions, principles with whom we are angry. Then we ask ourselves, why were we angry? Well, in most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, um, would be it affected my who I felt I was, my value, my worth, you know, in society, my ability to parent, my ability to be a child. That's the self-esteem part of it, that self-worth. I can't do anything right. I'm no good. I can't do anything right. Everything I do falls apart. I'm wrong all the time. Those are the messages that are, how did they put it? In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our money, by our pocketbook, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. Okay. When we got hurt, when we got threatened, we developed resentments. So we were sore, we were burned up. So on our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was our injury self-esteem, security, ambitions, personal or sex relations? What was it that was interfered with? So when you look at the cause, of why you were mad or why you are mad, okay, the cause, wasn't it something to do with self-esteem, sex relations, security, fear, pride? They made me feel like nobody. So you can kind of see that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. When we were finished, we considered everything carefully. The first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us got. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse, and then we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seems to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. Our hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience. The business of resentment is an entirely grave, infinitely serious. We found that it is fatal, for when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. So, we have, not knowingly, but we ourselves block God in our life by allowing the feelings of resentment, the anger, the fear, the yeah. So I said to my sponsor back then, are you telling me that I'm responsible for my fears? You gotta be kidding me. I said, fear is fear. How can I be responsible for my own fears? And after a period of time, I found that to be correct. I am responsible for my fears. If I feel fear, there is something I need to do. And that is to ask God to remove it at once. Pray for somebody, and then look for somebody I can help. So that takes some practice, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you get on the back of the motorcycle and you go a distance and, oh man, this is scary, okay? So you're feeling fear, so instead of getting mad or resentful, you tell God, I'm experiencing fear and I need to ask you to remove it. Because it's not beneficial to my life. I can't do your will. I can't enjoy my life when I'm living in fear, you know? So whether it's you're in a city that's being bombed, okay, or in a city that's being hit by a storm, or whatever, you have to get through it, you have to ask God to remove the fear or remove the anger. And replace anger with pity for that person. Replace the fear with confidence that, you know, it's not going to last that long. You know, this is not going to last that long in the picture of eternity, in the picture of even 24 hours. Okay. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. Normal people can call it a luxury, you know, but to us, it's a poison. Okay. All right. So before you go any further, you look at your list again from a different angle. Okay? So as you look at a couple of things that you wrote down. And read them to yourself. So now, the wrongdoings of others had power to actually kill. Okay? All right. And we see that the world and its people really dominated us. We also see that we had to escape that fate of being dominated and being killed by other people, the wrongdoings of other people. Okay. So the big book says, we saw these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away. Okay. So, first thing to realize is that the people that wrong you are perhaps spiritually sick. Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, like ourselves, were sick too. We ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant to a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, "This is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done." We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. All right? If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. Referring to our list again, so you're going to be looking at your list again, putting out of our minds the wrongs others have done, we look for our own mistakes. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried to disregard the other persons involved entirely. Where were we to blame? And at that particular point, we discovered that most of our problems were of our own making, because we didn't consult God, or we didn't own up to confrontation of discussing it with the other person. We lacked courage, and we didn't ask God for courage. So most of our problems are of our own making. And you'll have to say that to yourself to believe it. You know, and I had to say it to myself that if I look back at exactly how I might have poked the bear, okay, by my own selfishness, okay, I was able to believe that truth. Okay. Where were we to blame? The inventory was ours, not the other person's. When we saw our faults, we listed them. Okay. And the way that you can do that is listing, well, I must have been feeling attacked. Okay. So I retaliated. All right. Or you might look at it and say, instead of walking away, I engaged for too long, even though I knew I couldn't change a person's mind. I still engaged and tried to fix things instead of letting God fix things. So then you admit your own wrongs honestly, and you say to yourself, well, I've been mad at this person for a long, long time, and I may not be able to contact them and tell them that I feel bad about how I acted during our relationship. And I want to tell you that I feel this way and that I was angry at you for no cause. But I took it out on you. I argued with you. I retaliated. And I intend never to do that again. Now that I've looked at my part, all right. So that's the house cleaning. That's the sweeping your side of the street. And you'll find that every individual on your resentment list are the people that you owe them an amend. Okay, you owe them forgiveness. You owe them, you know what I'm saying? You owe them if you can, if they're still around or whatever, and you still can meet with them, you go back to them and you say, I want my spiritual growth to not be, I need to talk with you in order for my relationship with God to improve. Okay. But with some people, you don't want to bring religion into it at all. You just want to state the facts that I really treated you poorly, and I have no intention of treating you that way ever again. And some people will say, you don't care what they say back. There's all different things that people will say back. Okay. We admitted our wrongs honestly, and we were willing to set matters straight. Now you'll notice the word fear alongside some of the people as the difficulty that you had with them. Whether it was an employer or a spouse or whatever. But this short word, fear, touches about every aspect of our lives. Fear is an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune we felt we didn't deserve. But did not we ourselves set the ball rolling? Sometimes we think fear ought to be classed with stealing. It seems to cause more trouble. We look at our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper. Okay, now this is the second inventory. That if you feel like you still got some issues, and you think that fear, you in this process, you actually identify that feeling inside you that is fear. I know that I didn't think I feared anything, okay? And then I was able to identify the feeling. And then after I identified the feeling, then I remembered that, yeah, I've had fear, okay? Yeah, I have fear, all right? And then I was able to ask myself, why do I have the feeling of fear? And the answer was always the same. The answer that I found was because self-reliance had failed me. Self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't ever go far enough. Some of us once had great self-confidence, but it didn't fully solve the fear problem or any other problem. It just made us cocky, and that was worse. Perhaps there is a better way. We think so. For, because of these other steps we've done, we are now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. We trust infinite God rather than our finite selves. We are in the world to play the role He assigns, just to the extent that we do as we think He would have us, and humbly rely on Him. Does He enable us to match calamity with serenity? I like that we are in the world to play the role He assigns. And just to the extent that we think that and follow that and humbly rely on Him, does He give us serenity over calamity. We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. There will be those who think spirituality is the way of weakness. But we've learned that paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Okay. You know, people will tell you what they're going through, okay? And in the back of your mind, you can always say to yourself, God is never going to apologize to this person for what this person's going through. Okay? And if you say that in your mind, when you're hearing somebody's sob story, okay, of them being in self-pity, okay, and now you realize that people make their bed, you know, that people are to blame for their own problems to a large extent, okay? Then you can say to yourself, well, you know, when you go outside of God's will, you know, and practice self-reliance and self-confidence and all of that, you're setting something in motion. But if you can say, do I expect God to apologize for what He's given me to go through? You know, if you confront it like that, if you confront it in your mind, if you speak back into your mind, I don't think I'm going to ask God to apologize for what I'm going through. You know? Isn't that a good way of looking at it? Yeah. Okay. Okay. We let God demonstrate through us what He can do. We ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear. Now, about sex. Many of us needed an overhauling there. But above all, we tried to be sensible on this question. It's so easy to get way off the track. Here we find human opinions running to extremes, absurd extremes perhaps. One set of voices cries that sex is a lust of our lower nature, a base necessity of procreation. Then we have the other voices who cry for sex and more sex, who bewail the institution of marriage, who think that most of the troubles of the race are traceable to sex causes. They think we do not have enough of it, or that it isn't the right kind. They see its significance everywhere. One school would allow man no flavor for his fare, the other would have us all on straight pepper diet. We want to stay out of the controversy. We do not want to be arbitrators of anyone's sex conduct. We all have sex problems. We'd hardly be human if we didn't. Okay? So what you get out of that is we all have sex problems. We all don't really know how to communicate with each other sexually. But if two people agree to have sex and they're sensitive to each other's feelings, okay, it all works out just fine. But you can't be selfish, you know. You have to consider the other person as your partner in enjoying the sex and realize that a man doesn't give permission to have sex, okay? It's the woman's, it's the ladies who have the right to give permission for sex. We reviewed our own conduct over the years past. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate? Whom had we hurt? Did we unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? Where were we at fault? What should we have done instead? We got this all down on paper and looked at it. So that's you had a anger inventory. Then you did a fear inventory. And then you specifically did a sex relation inventory. And you look at it. In this way, we tried to shape a sane and sound ideal for our future sex life. We subjected each relation to this test. Was it selfish or not? We ask God to mold our ideals and help us to live up to them. We remembered always that our sex powers were God-given and therefore good, neither to be used lightly or selfishly, nor to be despised and loaded. Whatever our ideals turn out to be, we must be willing to grow towards them. We must be willing to make amends where we have done harm, provided that we do not bring about still more harm in so doing. So, if you have a partner and you have gone out on them, okay, and you think you need to go make amends to the partner and tell the partner that you have been selfish and that you arouse jealousy, suspicion, and bitterness because you were unfaithful, okay? You don't want to do that because you're bringing about more harm in the doing. All right? You just stop doing it. Okay? But you don't try to, you don't remove it from your, you don't cleanse a guilty conscience by harming another person with suspicion and jealousy and blah, 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 okay? To try to cleanse your own conscience. You go to God, okay, and you say, I acted selfishly and I intend never to do that again with your help, Lord. In other words, we treat sex as we would any other problem. In meditation, we ask God what we should do about each specific matter. The right answer will come if we want it. God alone can judge our sex situation. Counsel with persons is often desirable. Talking to girlfriends or talking to people, about it, who, aren't going to be harmed. But we let God be the final judge. We realize that some people are as fanatical about sex as others are loose. We avoid hysterical thinking or advice. So suppose we don't take care of it right away. Suppose we are slow to look at these kind of things, okay? In other words, suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we are going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half-truth. It depends on us and our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and have the honest desire to let God take us to better things, we believe we will be forgiven and will have learned our lesson. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. These are the facts out of our experience. To sum up about sex, we earnestly pray for the right ideal, for guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity, and for the strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge, when to yield would mean heartache. If you have been thorough about your personal inventory, you have written down a lot. You have listed and analyzed your resentments. You have begun to comprehend their futility and their fatality. You have commenced to see their terrible destructiveness. You have begun to learn tolerance, patience, and goodwill towards all men, even your enemies, for we look on them as sick people. We have listed the people we have hurt by our conduct and are willing to straighten out the past if we can. All right, now. Let's see here. Okay. In this book, you read again and again that faith did for us what we could not do for ourselves. We hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from Him. If you have already made a decision and an inventory of your grosser handicaps, you have made a good beginning. That being so, you have swallowed and digested some big chunks of truth about yourself. Having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We have been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the 5th step in the program of recovery. All right, now let's go to